When you think of Sabbath school, what do you think of? This morning, we're going to enlarge our conception of what can happen during Sabbath school. And it involves the Great Commission. Let's start there. In Matthew 28, Jesus is talking to his disciples, and he's giving them the Great Commission. This is right at the end. All authority in heaven and on earth has been given to me, Jesus says. Go therefore, because all authority has been given to him, and make disciples of all nations. Notice he's not saying just make decisions. He's saying make disciples. And then he explains how to do this. Baptizing them in the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit, teaching them to do all that I have commanded. Now, he's not just saying to know fundamentals. He's not just saying the Ten Commandments. What he's saying is to do everything that Jesus has commanded us. And when he says this, that is a life worth living, isn't it? So we have a time on Sabbath morning as Adventists when we worship, and we have a time when we do what's called discipling. Normally it's called Sabbath school. I'm suggesting that we start calling it discipleship class, because that's what it's about. Let's look a little bit more at this. By the way, I'm going to be sharing some stuff from a book that my wife and I wrote called Reinvent Your Sabbath School. And it's a way to get a step-by-step how to start a discipleship class that's really meaningful and enters real life. Let's take a peek here, okay? I just went through Matthew 28, 16 to 20, and 1 Corinthians 4:20 is another important text. 1 Corinthians 4:20 says, the kingdom of God does not consist in talk, but in power. Too many Sabbath school classes are all talk. What is it that brings power to a discipleship class? It's when we enter real life. And that's what we're about. Luke 12:34, we'll get to that a little bit later. But first, this is how we divide discipleship classes into these 5 realms, because these 5 realms are what it means to be a disciple. Prayer, social, money, time, and study. Now, prayer time, typically every Sabbath morning in this discipleship class format, we spend 20 minutes in prayer. You might say, oh, that's a long time. But I tell you what, it goes quickly when you have it down how it can happen. And I'm going to walk through this right now with you. So when we have this class, if you have a large class, it's good to have a whiteboard like this. Okay? If it's a small class, it's still good to have something, maybe a flip chart, something, could be a whiteboard too. And here's the reason. Because when you start, too many visitors come in and they really don't know names. They're kind of lost. With this approach, you start off with prayer. Are there any requests or any things we're grateful for this morning? And somebody will raise a hand and say, I really want you to pray for my father-in-law. We just found out he had cancer. Cancer, as you know, is an epidemic in this country. So the person up front would say, okay, thank you, Monica. Let's say her name is Monica. What's your father-in-law's name? His name is Ralph. Here we go. So I would put up here, number 1, Monica's father-in-law, Ralph. And then I would say this. Now, what do we want to actually pray for, Ralph? Well, we're praying for him and his family. And family. Okay. And we're trying to pray for them so that they have peace, so that we're praying for healing as well. Let's just say that. Healing in every way, emotionally, socially, spiritually. Okay? So we have this up here now, and then the person who makes this request cannot pray for that. Somebody else has to pray. So then we say, who would like to pray for this? Somebody raises their hand. Oh, thank you, Reese. Okay, so I'm going to put Reese up here. Now at this point, please understand what's just happened. If a visitor comes in, first of all, you can involve them instantly in the class. And they also instantly know names. They already know Monica's name, they know Reese's name, and they know something about what's going on. And it might be that they say, you know, I just arrived, but I will pray that prayer. I know somebody who has cancer right now, and I'm also interested in praying that prayer. Okay? So as you go through, this is the format so that you pray for people in the class. You keep tabs on it at the very end. You pray for the entire class. And if it's a large class, very often you can take 20 minutes or even more because you're finding out what happens in people's life. My friends, too often we show up to church burdened without a chance to actually share. And discipleship classes are the time when we can do that, okay? Prayer time is foundational for everything. A lot of things build from prayer time. I'm going to share one during money time when we talk about that. Social time is a time when you greet people, you make sure people are greeted, okay? Oftentimes we throw out a question, and the question is something like, what do you love most about autumn? Okay? Now, this is a good time to ask when it's autumn, generally. But then let's get in groups of 3 or 4 and find out. And then you get to know names, you find out, people share things, there's laughter, you can feel the energy and warmth in the class go up. You make sure everybody is involved. Give them some time, and then come back and then say, okay, what did you hear? What did you hear? Now that's a question that we ask often in this class, because listening is the communication skill that we use most, we learned first, and we're taught least. So practicing being disciples of Jesus means we listen. So what did you hear? That way people aren't dominating as well. They don't have to be talking about what they said. They talk about what they heard. Social time is also something that goes beyond that, beyond the class time, so that it goes outside of class. Might be that you go to a bowling alley sometime. It might be that you do a picnic. You can do all sorts of things as social. Make sure that you involve people because we are social beings, okay? In addition to this, we have money ministry. Now, money ministry, and by the way, let me just mention something about social. Too many times, we don't keep the fun in the fundamentals. We have to do that. That's what makes us attractive. Without the fun and the fundamentals, we're just left with the mentals. That's not good enough, all right? Money is often based on prayer time. We hear things in prayer time. Let me give you an example. At our class there, the Something Else class in Lincoln, Nebraska, which started 27 years ago. We had somebody come in, a single mom, Cindy, and she had told us many times, "You are my family. I really don't have family." She had 3 children. She had a child care business. She was living on the edge economically, and we knew that, and we helped her where we could. One time she didn't show up on Sabbath morning. And during prayer time, one of her friends said, "I want us to pray for Cindy. She's really discouraged. Her car died yesterday. She couldn't pick up some of her child care children. And the parents said, if you don't pick up our kids, we're going to pull them out." Now, if that happens, she's probably in a shelter. So we had a special money ministry plan, but we said, okay, let's change our plans and meet this need right now. So we did. When we got to money ministry, it's time to step up here. We're going to be giving to buy a car for Cindy. This class is a big class. It's about 70 people. They have some people who give a lot. And so we took up an offering. Now, during money ministry, in this class, what we do is we keep track of the money that we get. We know who it's going to, what it's going to. This class has done more than 800 special projects. Cindy's was just one. They have raised, in those 27 years, more than $600,000 for all sorts of causes. And people write thank you notes blanketing a wall. But this morning, we took up an offering and we raised $875. And when we announced that, we always announced it at the end. A guy raised his hand, and he said, I've been wanting to sell my car, and it just so happens that the asking price for this car is $875. On Monday, we gave her the car, and then she got licensed. She picked up her children. That is a discipleship class. That is entering life. I could tell you hundreds of stories like that. And when that happens, you feel this: God showed up. What a magnificent gift that is. When God shows up and we reach God through real life experiences. The fourth thing is time. Similar to money, we're talking about how can we give our time. Sometimes we find out somebody's moving, so we just show up. We called our class one class and a truck. And we'd show up, and sometimes we'd have more trucks. But we give our time. Sometimes we go out and clean somebody's yard. They're not able to keep up. We go in and just, within a couple of hours, you got 10 people show up. Wow. You can do a lot. I remember one time we read in the paper about somebody whose house was burned out. And we went over there. We didn't even know them, but we got permission. We came in, we ripped out carpet, and just this person was amazed. One time we found out that somebody was moving and they weren't ready. And so some women said, we want to help this woman. She's got 3 kids. They showed up at her door with boxes and markers. She opened the door. She started crying. She said, "Are you angels?" Now, I can tell you this, they aren't angels because I know those people. But on that day, they were. Finally, we have study. Now, oftentimes, this is the only thing that people engage in Sabbath school. We save it to the end because we study so that we can do these other 4. This is just aiming toward being a disciple for Jesus. And this is where we aim into real life. We had people come into our Sabbath school, our discipleship class. They weren't Adventists. We had Lutherans and agnostics. We had recovering Catholics. We had recovering Adventists too. They just showed up because they loved what we did in this class. And they're still doing it. They're still showing up. In Luke 12:34, one of my favorite verses, easy to remember, 1, 2, 3, 4. Luke 12:34, Jesus says, where your treasure is, there your heart will be also. What he's saying is, where you invest your time, your money, your passion, your prayers, your heart will follow. Too often we believe, if we believe something, we'll do it. The truth is closer to, if you do something enough, you will believe it. And that's what Jesus says. Where your treasure is, there your heart will be also. So please give this a try. Please pick up this book and look into it, how you can be stewards and disciples in a discipleship class. Go with God. Enjoy the journey.